Hello everyone, welcome. You're about to see an interview with Tim Heavyside and Jason Salan, two of the directors of Fletchers Real Estate here in Melbourne. Both have won Agent of the Year. Tim's won it 5 times, Jason's won it once. They run very, very good businesses. The interview's been heavily edited because it was so long, because there was so much content. There are some really good basic threads and commonality here with two people, two country boys that have been so successful in Melbourne real estate. Great core values, great structure, great daily routine, good recruitment policies, good ethics, good morals, a whole range of things. And this interview compiles all that, and you'll see the genuineness and sincerity that these two just ooze on the day-to-day basis. They're in a very, very competitive environment and they do very, very, very well. And those common threads that I've just mentioned seem to be the basic structure of really good, successful people. Watch, enjoy and subscribe. When you talk about, that quiet, sedate approach, people want to deal, I find, with the expert. Do you agree with that?
Yep, 100%.
But not just in real estate. They want to know that you know the market, the economy, what's happening with mining in Perth, how that's going to affect the stock market. Will there be an inflow of Asians in, as we spoke about before, which we may cover? Last year there was 91,500 people came into Melbourne.
Yep.
Right? As agents, we need to know those stats.
Yeah.
We need to advise people. So I know you both reasonably well.
Yep. So
what do you do on a daily or a weekly basis to keep yourself informed? Just even the basic stuff like read a particular paper. What do you do? Tell everyone what you do.
First of all, I have a, if you don't mind, I might start and
Go
I'll
for it,
over to you, Jay, sorry.
We'll cover the same stuff.
I have a bit of a thought process holistically over this. There's 3 types of people that I tend to deal with. Now, the first type of person that wants to be led, they're the bulk of people, really. They can't make decisions very easily.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
Easily led, and so you can influence those people pretty easily. Then you've got the 5%, or even maybe top 3% of the world who are leaders, owners of business.
The director type personality.
The director type personality. And they like to outsource, and they're looking for an expert, and they'll value a professional if it's in real estate, or if it's a medical, like your doctor you were talking to me off air about. You valued that person. You outsource to someone that you find as a professional. It could be in plumbing or building or whatever it is, and they can be easily influenced. And then you've got this third category who are very difficult, and I call them farmers. A farmer, okay, know-it-alls. Yeah. Not all farmers, but they can be. What I mean by that, if the fence is falling down, I'll fix that fence. You don't tell me how to fix the fence, I'll fix it.
Yeah.
And if the shed's falling down and the old tractor's broken, I'll fix the tractor. I'll fix the house, I'll fix this, I'll do it. I know how to sell real estate. So that know-it-all. They're very hard to influence, and so that type of personality. So when you dress before, if you've got someone that's a professional and they know their stuff, and you've really got to know your stuff, then someone will pay you a specialist fee for that, and you can get a higher commission or a higher fee because they value what you've got to offer. In our world, that's influencing people. That's what selling is. So to influence somebody, and if you are, say, selling your property and you're after a professional, you want the best, then you've got those accreditations, and you've got that you can impress someone because you met them and open for inspection, they've seen how you perform an auction, they've seen how you look after people, and you've been recommended to them. You know what? I just want to use that person. And in my line of thought process, I firmly believe that people have already made their decision on their company that they're going to use, and most of the time these days, even the agent, before they've already gone to think about selling, they've already.
I'd have to agree with you, and you know what? of late, because I do some consultancy work.
Yeah.
I've been talking about that, and people have been disagreeing with me. And I don't. That's why I stated that thing about the gentleman of real estate before, because what happens is that I use this line that sincerity sells, and I believe that the majority of people want to be led, but they want to be led with purity, and they want to be able to trust you.
Yeah.
Right. And I suppose to a certain extent, one of the things that I used to say with people that used to work well for me is, how was your last experience with your agent? And sometimes they might say, terrible.
Yeah.
I say, well, look, you're going to get a pleasant surprise with me.
Yep.
Or they might say, great. I said, good, I'm going to exceed your expectations then. So, and I know they sound like lines and scripted dialogue and things, but I generally meant it. And I think with that is that, like we're having this chat now, one of the things that impresses me about both of you is that you never overspeak. Both of you don't. In the meetings that we've had, you never overspeak. You've got this thing about we do the eye contact and the body language and all that stuff. We get all that, but it's I think it's innate for us. It's not manifested. It's normal.
Yeah. Natural.
Yeah, and people get it. So therefore, when you go into a house, that's a big thing, especially if the lady is home and the husband's not there, which is not uncommon, and they're letting a man into the house. That is a very, very open environment, and there's a lot of trust given to the person they introduce. So when you go back and you say they've picked the company or most likely the agent beforehand, I agree.
Yeah. And
I agree on the basis of that example I've just given you, because I've thought about that a lot.
Yeah.
And people would go to me, when we did the James Hatsolis interview, because he made a comment off air. He goes, "You used to list a lot of houses. How did you do both jobs?" And I said to him, "Do you know what it was? It was just that every time I went out, I was automatically networking, not deliberately, but I did it because I just like people, right?
Yep.
So I'd go and buy a coffee, know the lady's name, which I've spoken about a bit. I'd go where I buy my clothes. I know everybody. I know their family. I know their dogs. Not because I'm trying to get them to list the house with me, just purely because I care."
Yeah, you're interested.
Yeah, and people generally get that, and that's what you got. That's how you guys come across in the marketplace to me, and that's how I think that's what you're saying now. Because I certainly believe that 75% easy of the people, they might get two other agents in, but they've already generally picked it, because there's that certain thing where they read in the media that an agent underquoted and did this, did that. So there's a little bit of distrust, but they generally have done that thing first. So that's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up, because I certainly absolutely believe that. And for anyone watching this, that's why sincerity and purity in the marketplace is the most important thing. And I think the trust is probably the most important thing that you have as a real estate agent. You agree with that?
Yeah, but trust is earned.
Yeah.
And there's lots of things that you do to build trust.
Yeah.
Our CEO, Bradley Brown, talks about it as a trust bank.
Yeah.
Building certain amounts, and then you can have withdrawal on something that you may not have done, but you have to build up a certain amount of credits in the trust bank.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I certainly agree with that. And it's interesting how what happens over the period of time when I had the Mount Waverley office up here, one of the things that used to happen, and now remembering I've been out of it since 2002, I might sit and have a coffee in Mount Waverley. I'll still get people coming up and saying, "Michael, I'm ready to list." I've been here for 15 years, and that's what they say, right? And so
give them my number, mate. All right.
Okay. Just open up an office.
Yeah, why not? I'll travel.
Yeah. So from that perspective, I find that if we talk about that trust bank for a minute, okay, that's how important is it then for you guys to articulate that down the tree as the directors and educate the staff, because what happens is that then, as we mentioned prior, I think most real estate proprietors have a responsibility to recruit first. If you don't recruit, you suffer. But remembering too that from my day, the role of a real estate director's changed a bit. You guys list and sell more than what I was doing. Right? So I was doing that, but you guys are doing that a lot more now, because I think one of the things that I credit you guys for at Fletchers is you've got a very good back end of your business. It's known in the market that your admin and everything else is good, right?
That's right.
And if there's any flaws in it, which they may always well be, you never hear about it outside.
We work really hard on that.
Yeah.
But I'd say the biggest asset for us is the leadership within Fletchers.
Talk about that. Tell me.
Well, our company's been around for 98 years. We've got a great group of directors. I mean, Jason's going away for a couple of weeks next week. He's not leaving the business, and oh my God, he's going to be on the phone, every day, seeing how everything's going, worrying. He can go away with ease, peace of mind, that what's going to happen is that the business is going to keep running forward. Because we've got great support people in the business. So when Jason goes away on any form of long extended annual leave, Jason and I have got a buddy system. So I'll list properties for Jason while he's away, and vice versa. Whenever I'm on extended annual leave, Jason will go out and represent me as a director. So it's very rare that we'll ever have
extended. Do commission splits on that, or
we have a three type of situations, but sometimes we have to, because you're going to win the business then.
Because your valuable asset's time.
I've got a bit of a story to tell. I mean, I went on some annual leave, and Jason and I had an opportunity of a property on Bulleen. I think it was Bulleen Road or Thompson's Road in I think it was Bulleen.
Oh yeah.
And this lady and husband had bought a property, and then they were downsizing, and they're going to sell their townhouse. It was on Thompson's Road.
It was, yes.
Anyway, I come back from annual leave, and Jason said, "Well, we've got this business. I've got this listing." I said, "Oh, okay." And then Jason was going on some annual leave, and he said, "Look, we've got a week to go before the auction, and they're freaking out. We haven't got a buyer on it." I said, "Okay." So
just hand that off to you too.
And I'm off, right?
Yeah, can you fix this for me?
Yeah, fix this for me. So okay.
I listed it, mate. You got to sell it.
So it's a bit of a long-winded story.
It's okay, go. It's good. This is good. This is good. This is what we want.
So what happened?
People want to hear it.
The vendors were freaking out because they overextended themselves on this purchase. And it was a fairly short settlement, and they wanted a quick settlement on their property. And it was the back one of 3 townhouse. It was quite a nice property, but we were struggling because of the main road. Less people were coming through. The market wasn't as hot. It was a couple of years ago. And I had this phone call. The vendor was ringing me every day, and I was ringing the vendors every day. Like, look, we've had some inquiry, but nothing happening. And they were freaking out. The wife was crying. And it was about the Wednesday before the auction. I had a phone call from Queensland, from the Gold Coast. This Indian man who rang me and said, "Listen, would they sell before auction?" And of course, being cool, I said, "Oh, look, if it was the right price, they might, but we're going to auction. But what's your situation?" He told me he's up in Queensland. I said, "Look, would you be prepared to make an offer? And I can always talk about it with the vendor." Long story short, I found out that he was a doctor. Double doctors, the husband and wife. They were moving in around the corner, setting up a practice. So this home really suited them. And I said, "Look, let me have a chat with our vendors, but would you be willing to fly down and have a look at it, inspect it, and see if you can make an offer?" They said they would. They'd come down on the Friday before the auction. Anyway, I explained this all to the vendor, and they said, "Our vendor, Jason's away."
I was in Fiji, mate.
And I said, "Look,"
We'll have a crack at him about that later.
Yeah, and I said, "Listen, but that's the good thing about us. It's a buddy system, so it's all good." So they said, "Listen, this sounds like our buyer." And I said, "Look, I've got a good feeling about it." And again, Biv, that's that intuition. You kind of have a feeling with a buyer sometimes. And anyway, I rang them back, and they said, "Look, we've made a decision. We're not going to fly down on the Friday. We've got another property in Lower Templestone that we're going to bid on Saturday morning. If we miss out on that, then we'll give yours a crack." And that was at 12 o'clock. I thought, "Oh, just what's going to happen here?" And I rang the vendors, and I said, "What's going on?"
They were devastated.
Yeah, they said, "They're going to buy this other property in Lower Temp." I said, "Well, I've got a bit of an idea." And they said, "Oh, what's the idea?" And I said, "Why don't we offer that they fly down?" And I said, "Oh, why don't you come down and fly down on the Friday night to this Indian couple?" And they said, "Oh, we don't want to bother with night's accommodation, car hire, and all that mucking around if we don't end up getting something. We just want to fly down, get the property, and fly back. We're going to buy something." So, all right. So I explained all this to the vendors. And they said, "Oh, Tim, they're going to buy this other property." And I said, "Look, I've got a bit of an idea. Why don't they stay the night at your house?" "At our house? Look, they're strangers. I said, they're strangers. I only spoken to them on the phone. But if I can get them to stay the night at your home, they're going to feel pretty compelled to buy it. And it's a nice home. The problem is getting people into the home.
Great idea.
Anyway.
I've never heard that. It's a great idea. That's a great idea.
They said, well, do you reckon they'll go for it? Oh, absolutely. Anyway, so I rang up the doctor. I said, look, the vendor has come up with a great idea. They've invited to stay the night for you to stay the night with them.
What a beauty.
And they said, they've suggested this. Yeah, they've said they're the loveliest people. Wait till you meet them. So I'll tell you what, I'll arrange for you to fly in Friday. You book the flight for Friday. I'll arrange to pick you up from the airport. You stay the night with them. They're already going to organise dinner and everything. So just tell your wife it's all booked. So change the flight and I'll sort the rest out. So you sure? He goes, oh, I better check with my wife. I go, check with your wife, but it's all sorted. Anyway, so he rang me back. Said, oh, okay, we'll take up the vendor's offer.
Great.
Sold.
Got them there on the Friday night. And I had them within 3 or 4 minutes. Got them upstairs and I said, oh, we want to make an offer though. I said, no problem. So they bought it before and they stayed the night and everything like that.
And the thing is with that is that I suppose that's where trust and commitment come in together.
Yeah.
And it's a great strategy because that's our business is about strategy.
Yeah.
Right. But it's also to the way you must have put it across.
How you sell it
to get someone down who's a complete stranger, there is an art in doing that.
Yeah.
You know, so congratulations. That is a crackerjack idea.
But my point is, Jason's away, not thinking about
Buddy system,
Thompson's Road. He's okay.
Yeah. Well, it's a good.
He come back and it was all sold the week after, I think.
I think that's a good thing about you talked about leadership within the company is that we're all mates. You know, like across the 8 or 10 directors there now. You know, like Tim and Jeremy and Rob and Bradley and all the guys. You know, like I consider ourselves friends first and foremost. And I think that really helps, you know, like we're all on the same path. I know that Tim will do anything to look after me and vice versa, you know, in the business. So.
But very loyal. And I don't necessarily agree with you, Viv, about recruitment's the number one. I think
I know you and I think differently
on that.
But remember, my role was different to yours though, because but your structure, sorry to butt in, but your structure was different to mine, where the profile that I told you about how we listed offices and all that was very much built up on profile that had been built around me. But I wasn't, I would say that 20% of my week or 30% of my week was only doing listing and selling. The rest was growing.
Yeah.
Right. So our roles were different. So that was probably a little bit of a generalised or generic comment that might not be related to you, because you, as I said, your back end is excellent, and I have to say your back end seems a lot better than ours was.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
What I was trying to make the point is that we don't just take anyone on.
Yeah.
We're not after about anyone. We're after quality and people that can be in sync with our leadership and how we're running the company.
So who recruits then? If say that, you know, if I was back in real estate today, and my thought process is antiquated, right, and that my old business model wouldn't work today. I don't know whether it would or not, but if it didn't, then I'd have to look at something like you do. So who does, say for instance, when you're looking for staff at an office level, or you're looking for staff at a corporate level, tell me how that works. Who does what?
So it's opportunity. So Jason's probably the best at it, honestly, than me or anyone else in terms of recruiting. He's recruited more people than Fletchers.
How do you go about it?
I don't know about that. I mean, I think recruitment's obviously it's a team and a corporate.
What have something to do with your socks, you think?
My socks? I'm regretting wearing those this morning now that I'm on camera. But anyway, I'm sure my kids will enjoy that. I think recruitment's something that you've got to have a strategy for. Like it is, as you know, I think it is very important in the business there, and you've got to understand that good recruitment takes time.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something that just happens overnight. You know, you might be, you know, building a relationship with a person or even a business, you know, over a number of years, you know, with a long-term view that hopefully you might be able to join or recruit those people in the future. And look, we use all the usual channels as well, obviously the pull engines and seeks and all those sorts of things.
LinkedIn,
all that sort of stuff. The good agents are hard to get, and it takes a longer time to recruit them, or the good businesses to put yourself in a position to purchase them, to be one of those suitors. But I do feel that the sort of 1 to 3 year agent is a key recruitment area. Someone that's been in the business like Tim was for 9 or 12 months, having trouble at that brand or that office for whatever reason it might be, but has got some real estate savvy. For me, they're key.
How many salespeople have you got in your office?
Oh, we fluctuate up and down. I think we're running about 18 in that office now in total.
Right. Have you ever done an analysis on your longevity of people, like how long they've actually lasted?
It's interesting. I was just, last Friday I was fortunate enough, well, Jason and I were quite fortunate enough to be invited to the football match between Western Bulldogs and the Sydney game.
Oh, yeah, great.
The footy, right? Yeah. Unfortunately, Jason couldn't make it, but I was there, and I was catching up with some other industry colleagues, and we were talking about this. What kind of caliber of agent, as a director, we're looking for as a salesperson? And we're saying, look, around that $300,000 GCI earners, probably a good candidate to get. They're not this 100-pound gorilla that may's riding $1 or $2 million and can be a bit of a
hard to handle,
or someone that's struggling doing 100, 150 or whatever, and you're trying to always invest in time. The 300,000 GCI 400, they roll along themselves. They've got a bit of momentum, got a bit of brand presence.
Very easy to get to 800 then.
Yeah, that was my next question. When they're able to grow because they're keen, and sometimes it's only 5% more effort to double your income, as we know.
Yeah.
We had a brief story on that. Was the best salesperson that I had when we were up here. We had 10 at one stage, and he was giving me an inordinate amount of grief.
Yeah.
Wouldn't listen, a whole range of different things. So in the end, I let him go.
Egos and things.
Yes, and it was amazing what happened when I let him go, because we were doing well, but then we started doing even better.
Yeah.
Because 2 or 3 other salespeople, and one that really comes to my mind, started to blossom because he'd been holding her down, and I wasn't aware of that because he'd get busy. And I don't know whether this is right today, but I used to not always. I think that 300-400 GCI is maybe a good base to look at. But one of the things that occurred to me is I needed to make sure that I had a blend of personalities that I got on with, had the same moral code that I had, and my moral fibre, and had, we spoke about before. And one of the first questions I say to people, what makes you happy, right? But then I say, and talking about the family stuff, the ones, and people, my dad always says it's important that people know you come from a good family and all that sort of stuff. And at 55 now, I think of some of the things my dad said that I thought was rubbish early on, and I now know to be true. But on that, I used to look for a personality mix where I go, you might not have any sales skill, but I think I can develop you in a short period of time. Because you're stable at home, you're happy at home, and I think if you're happy at home and you even have a shitty day at work, you're still okay at work. But if home is no good, work's generally going to be terrible.
And they say if home's no good, and you might have a lousy 5 minutes, somehow it's a lousy day.
Yeah.
And that's a mindset.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and you've got to, I think, and going back to the gorilla and going back to the 300 or 400 GCI person, the mentality is that I used to get them in, and I used to say to them, if you were going to sell your house, this is always the question that would make me employ them or not. What would you expect from the person selling your house? If you were the vendor and I'm now your agent, and these people are trying to get a job off me right now, what would you expect me to do for you? Tell me, write out 10 things and let me know. And that would generally let me know, A, how they think, but B, I'd say to them, are you capable of doing those 10 things then? If I like the 10 things that I read, do you think that you're capable of doing that when you represent us in this business? And that was one of the key questions I used to ask in closing in that. So I think from that point of view, sometimes there's an agent locally up here that used to say to me, you know, Michael, you know, your office had 67% of the business up here, and I didn't think any of your sales staff were good. And I take offence to that. And I said to him, well, some of them used to write big numbers. He goes, oh, you used to feed them. I said, no, I didn't. What I did is I had a personality mix that did what you said before, the buddy system. And if you had an issue, you'd come and help him. And we did that a lot. And I think in the real estate industry today, as I'm doing a bit of consulting, that doesn't exist. That's why you guys are probably quite unique.
We talk about, you know, culture, but culture is really having the same message and everyone moving in the same direction.
Unified goals.
That's unified goals, And that's something that we're always working on at Fletchers, as this is more a director, me talking now with the director's hat on. We have a conference every year that we'll get away and we'll talk about where the direction of the company is going, that we're all on the same page. Get away and we can have that connection and mateship. And it's not a boys' club. There's female directors, and it's all about everyone.
Do you do that at home?
Yes.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Yeah, I do that with my kids and my wife. We talk. One of the things people say, you know, you've been together a long time, partnerships, you know, whether with your wife or with your mates, whatever. And I find unified goals are probably the top of the list as far as keeping yourself together. And it can be holidays, buying investment property, buying a new car, health, you know, making sure you get your checkups done, all that sort of stuff. So do you guys do that at home? Have you got a unified sort of system where, like, I know the goals of my kids and my wife, you know?
I certainly do.
Yeah, you do?
Probably my favourite conversations throughout the year with my wife and my kids, you know, as we sit down and talk about their aspirations individually or our aspirations as a family. And, you know, I have a very clear picture about where I want to be when I'm 55 and when I'm 50 and what holidays I want to take each year and what I want to achieve, not necessarily always on a professional level, but what I want to achieve personally at home, either physically, mentally or financially. And, you know, we talk very openly about those things, and I think that's a great, provides great aspiration for the children, so that they feel involved, but then also, I think, learn some of those skills to set goals for themselves and then work towards them and how to achieve them. And you know, there's times over a glass of wine with my wife that they're some of our most intimate conversations, you know, about all those personal feelings about what you want to do and, you know.
Yeah, whether you've been fulfilled.
100%. So as I said, they're some of my favourite conversations that we would have throughout the year.
All right, well then I'll ask another question related to that with staff. I was blessed up here that I didn't have a lot of attrition. And I've often thought about how I kept so many people for so long, because we had a lot of people working up here. And what you've just mentioned, Jess, about the goals and having that intimate conversation is and unknowingly I think I did it, but I knew what each person wanted to do, and it wasn't just always fiscally orientated. Right? It was, it could be that their father is ill and they want to take him up to wherever and spend some time with them and all that sort of thing. And I think as owners of businesses and directors, there is a moral responsibility for you to be able to help and assist, even if it may cost you financially a little bit, to make sure that they're inside, if they can't do it themselves, and you try and help them do it. Well, let me ask you this. I want to talk about time management for a minute.
All right.
Okay? The words at the moment that sort of hit the real estate industry are disruptors, time management, all those sorts of things. Right? So, and I don't differentiate between those two words, right? Because I think they're very correlated. And I think that the time management skills of generally most commission salespeople are poor. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Okay. So therefore, then the question is, how do we fix that? And all the time management books you read and all the other stuff, even the early Tom Hopkins stuff, all that stuff, I look at it and go, you know, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, that I was saying. I know it's corny. So therefore, with you guys running those businesses, you're listing and selling, so you're busy.
Yeah.
You've got salespeople, and at some stage they'll get off the boil. They'll have an argument with their girlfriend, argument with their wife, all those sorts of things. So the time management goes out the window, right?
Yeah.
I did a thing on YouTube just recently about talking about running a black line. And every time you go off, and this is the start, this is 8 o'clock in the morning, and this is 6 o'clock at night, and you got a line, that's your goal. And on that line is all the goals you got to do. And then every once in a while, something will happen and it takes you off. How quickly you get back on, that little triangle, how quickly you get back on is very crucial how you get back on track.
Very true.
So the question then is beckoning that how do we get people to stay on track more often than not? And is that fiscally motivated, emotionally motivated? Where's that motivated from? So you guys, in my opinion, have a responsibility to, even though you're busy, you have to be very mentally, physically and intuitively aware who, what and where is happening everywhere. Right? It's like walking into the back of your real estate office. Sometimes you can feel that it's rocking and sometimes you can feel it's not. Right?
Yeah.
So what happens... And as I said, disruptive time management, but what I'm really talking about is crisis management. What happens when the shit hits the fan? What do you do? How much attention do you pay? Do you just stop what you're doing right then and there, no matter how important, and get onto that? Or whatever? And I'm going to give you a couple, and I'm having a long-winded spiel here, but I can remember when I first started in real estate, the lesson that I learned that carried me through so often was if I ever came back and I'd lost a market appraisal, David would pull me into the office, not to berate me or go crook at me, and he'd write down on the whiteboard, right, let's have a look at what you could have done better. Do you guys do any of that? Do you analyse every loss you have?
We do. We used to. We still do, but differently. And I don't run exactly the same practices as Jason.
A little bit different. But
but
let's talk about it.
To answer your question, from my perspective anyway, is structure and discipline.
Yeah.
You need structure. You need a structure around you that if someone is, because I run a team. I've got a team. Jason's got a team.
Yeah.
So we've got our own complexities with that. Then we've run a office team. Okay. He's got his office. I've got my office.
And then you've got a franchise group.
And I've got So there's a few things there.
You guys are busy.
Yeah, and there's different hats.
Yes.
Sometimes. Team Heavyside hat, sometimes team Canterbury office, sometimes I'm the director, sometimes I'm the auctioneer, sometimes I'm the salesperson, sometimes I'm the person that needs mentoring. There's different hats you wear.
Yeah.
So structure and discipline is the answer. You have to have a certain amount of structure and people are around to help support. So I'll go back to what links our company, in my opinion, better than others is our leadership.
Right.
So it all stems from there. So if I'm not available and someone's got a crisis, then we've got other people at our office that can help in a crisis.
Okay.
And a lot of it's listening to people and understanding what's the real problem, what's the truth, and cutting to what's the most important thing.
It's hard finding the truth sometimes.
You got to ask the right questions.
Exactly. Well, ask a better question, get a better answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll get off topic for a second.
Go.
But I think that if you've got imagination, you thinking that, you know what, I've got a vision here where we're going to be moving, and that's your magnet, and you're working towards your vision, your goal, and there's sincere vision of not just money, but where the company's evolving and going towards, and you've got that vision, then you can keep working towards that. So that might mean from a daily crisis, and if you've got daily crisis with the same person and they're not fitting into your culture, maybe they're not the right person that should be working at the company. They've got continued crisis or problems that they've got, they're pulling you away. You've got that negative energy. I can't stand negative energy. Yeah. It's not like I don't deal with it. Yeah. But sometimes you just need to cut through the BS and get to the truth. For example, I had a situation where from another office, I had an agent who was working with 3 other employees as in support team.
Right.
And they came into my office to see how we perform and how we work.
Yeah.
And within 5 minutes of meeting up with them and understanding their structure, I said, this is not working. Like, I can't help you because you've got problems with your own structure.
Yeah.
So I pulled away the leader and I explained, well, that person's got to go. You don't need this person. Why are you taking this person on? I got to the truth.
Yeah.
And then she came into my office about, I don't know, 3 days ago, and she said, Tim, thanks so much. It's just completely, it's what I needed to hear. Not how you work yours and try and fit. It was fixing my issues there.
That's a great example.
I'm just saying, as a leader, sometimes you're getting, and you said the word disruption, but we're so busy these days with iPhones and we're always on. And so
they can be disruptors in that too.
Absolutely. And just being on all the time and busy. But often I have that target in my mind, and this is part of the vision, is from a salesperson perspective, which is the main focus on where some of this negative energy or things that are drawing you away from. The main thing is to get the listing. What gets the listing is an appraisal. What gets an appraisal is a contact. What gets a contact is, pushing your brand and getting out there. And then all the other stuff you've got, administration, being busy,
that keeps
drama in the office. So stop focusing on drama and being busy, and let's get back to finding a lead, developing a contact, finding a lead, getting an appraisal, and getting the listing. Let's focus your energy on that.
I was going to say, I reckon for me, being able, like Tim said, being able to insulate yourself mentally from all the other rubbish that's going on, shielding is a great skill in real estate. You better get used to shit, because there's lots of it in real estate, whether it be from your vendors or.
I think all businesses have that, Jason.
And a really good skill is being able to stay focused on where you want to be. And I think about where I want to be in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and that's my driver. But I think one of the biggest learnings I've had in the last 10 years is knowing when you're not on track, as you said, whether it's 5 minutes or 1 day or, heaven forbid, a week or 2 weeks where you're off track, and realising that and knowing how to get back on track. And for me, that was probably a real key learning from Freddie Grace was, knowing when you weren't in flow, when you weren't getting the listings and you're probably out partying too hard and doing all those sorts of things, and then knowing how to rectify it and get back on track and trying to insulate yourself from all that sort of stuff. I'm pretty cut and dry. I don't put up with too much rubbish around the office.
You don't tolerate fools.
No, and I certainly try and empower others. I think that's another key skill is delegate and let other people make decisions, which helps their growth and also then removes a lot of that responsibility out of yourself, and then try and deal with that, listing and selling, that focus, and then also growing the business and the other avenues.
See, as your offices grow, and I go back to what I remember, is we used to have a trigger point. So therefore, once you drove into the car park, I used to say to the guys, your mode has to change, right? And therefore, you've got that initial, how you going, Tim? How the kids, all that sort of stuff. But if that conversation dragged on for more than 3 or 4 minutes, I'm not a goer for that.
Yeah, I know. I'm
sorry. At all. Yeah. Right? So
people know.
Go make your coffee. It's no different to when I come in here. I come in here, I say hello to Mary, I do all that, we have a chat, we have a coffee, then she's in her office, I'm in mine, we'll talk, we'll communicate, but while we're here, we're productive. So from that point of view...
I've got no patience for it.
Yeah, and that's why when I talk about, I spoke about crisis management, and because what I was actually leading to with that was also training. So when Mary first came here, the first thing I did with Mary is I made her a cup of coffee, right? So therefore, and she wasn't used to her potential boss making her a cup of coffee or her boss making her a cup of coffee. I did that for a number of reasons. A, to get to know her better. B, so she knew that I could do what she did, right? Yeah. And then she also learned how I like my coffee, so we still muck around, make each other's coffees and do all that sort of stuff. But if we've ever, when things come up, one of the things I find disappointing, and that's when I spoke about crisis management, is sometimes you need to manage on the go. So therefore, you're coming back from an appraisal. Yeah. You've got a guy that's just lost a listing that you thought you were going to get because someone else came in at the last minute, all that sort of stuff. Some of that training is invaluable to do it right then. Right on the spot, where it's done then, where it's fresh, and he can remember everything he or she didn't do. And and you hit it then. And that's what I learned from David originally from my first company, getting back to that. That taught me so much to, vendor profile, buyer profile, understanding who they are, their backgrounds, knowing a few words in Indian is good. Knowing a few words in Chinese is good. Understanding their religious backgrounds is good. So you can be respectful. Yeah. All those sorts of things. And it's funny because when we used to lose a listing, a lot of it was always going back to the start of this conversation. They didn't have enough knowledge.
Yeah.
They weren't reading the papers. They didn't know what went on the planet. So those sorts of things. And now that we're in a culture, especially in your areas, where your cultural mix is so diverse and will become more so. I read an article the other day. They reckon there's 33 different or 37 different types of restaurants in Melbourne, cuisine-wise. Wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah. We need to know a lot more now.
Yeah.
And especially in your industry. So and I've just covered a few things then, but I think on that score now is the other, aside from doing a bit of crisis management, the director's role is to make sure that your guys are always learning.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yep.
But what Jason said before about empowering people as well.
Yeah.
So it's important to give them direction and you can be out listing a property and something happening in the office and people are dealing with it as well.
Yeah, it's good.
But I believe what you said was something's happened, it's good to hit it straight then.
Yeah.
I call it getting to the truth, what's really happening.
Yeah.
Finding out, but asking good questions is the key.
Yeah.
Listening to people, but asking good questions.
Well, ask a better question, get a better answer. We did a video on that recently.
So I reckon I heard at a conference 2 years ago at one of our directors' conferences, and it's something that resonated with me for the last couple of years, which is if you've got something to talk about the most important thing first. Because often you might talk about something, how's your day, do this, etc. But you might run out of time and then you haven't actually broached on the most important thing that you wanted to get off your chest. And then you've talked about all this other not really important stuff, but get to the most important thing first. So you're trying to find out what's the real problem, what's the issue with somebody, and listening to that. So that's the main problem, it's the main issue, okay? And then there might be other things, but let's just tackle that main problem.
I agree with that
first.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying
that's a good point though.
Being ruthless and not having coffee and things that's
you can still be polite and get over the pleasantries and then get right into it.
Correct. Get into it. Yeah. The most important thing first.
Yeah, I did that this morning. I hadn't seen Mary for a few days.
Yeah.
So I walked straight in and we said, "Hi, how you going?" And we had a kiss and got down to work. But like within 30 seconds of that, we were talking about the events of the last few days, because there were some important things happening in our business.
Right.
So from that point of view, and then A, it puts her at ease.
Yeah.
B, then I've spread the knowledge, and we spoke to Raymond, my accountant, and told him, and did all that and said, right, we've got these settlements coming up, blah, 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 blah. Everyone knows. So within 5 minutes, the important speak is done. I so agree with that process. Yeah. I have to say to you, I don't see that in a lot of real estate businesses that I've been looking at, right? But they are getting better.
Yeah.
And the reality overall, even from where I was working recently, is that we get, and I use this example where someone had lost their keys. There was like 7 or 8 people in the office looking for these keys for 40 minutes. I just sat there and said to the director, is that okay?
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
Productivity.
Yeah. And now, so from that, and that's that word, I love that word, that productivity word.
Yeah.
Because the best salesman that I've ever met, you talk to them and they're busy and flat out, but they're not necessarily working a 15-hour day.
But they're productive.
Wow. But maybe in 6 or 7 hours or 8 hours, the amount of work they're doing, and their time management skills are extremely productive.
Same in a listing presentation. As an agent, I ask the vendors, what's the most important thing you'd like to talk about today?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
And you just tackle that.
Yeah, straight
That's
up.
the most important thing.
Yeah. When you go into a house, do you go in and sit down at the table first? I used to go down and say, look, can we sit down for a minute and get to know each other a little bit?
Yeah.
Even though I'd done a lot of phone prep though before, so before I meet a vendor I don't know, I've generally done a lot of phone prep. I would probably have had 2 or 3 conversations with them prior to doing the market appraisal.
I pretty much know if I'm going to get it or not, even on the telephone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good call.
But so yeah, I do the sit to a sit.
Yep.
But I know if I'm going to a fairly good show based on the conversation I've had with the vendor and that 10 minutes to set up the appointment.
Yes.
And then my preparation to the appointment. And then when I go in there, I'll absolutely own it.
Yeah.
My confidence is right up.
Yep.
I'm there, especially if it's in my patch. If you're a competitor, watch out.
Yeah, good.
And that's my mindset. But that doesn't mean that I get every single kick in the footy field.
That's I get that.
Yeah.
But that's how it works.
That's how it works.
Ratios,
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll ask a lot of questions at the start. Deliberate questions, structure and discipline. So I've got a structure and I'm disciplined how I go about it.
Yeah.
But your energy's got to be there for the person as well.
I think you said the pre-qualifying questions on the phone for most agents out there is their biggest letdown. You can ask a salesperson, so what do they call Fletchers? And I don't know.
Can they hear you smile on the phone? Like Dad used to say.
Yeah.
If they can hear you smile on the phone, you're in.
Yeah.
Just kills me, like we've sold for the sister 4 times. We didn't ask the question, so you don't know that. And then you go in there and it's just an automatic sign up. So that the pre-qualifying part for me is probably one of the key areas. And I think if you do that well, Tim's right, you know whether you're going to get the business before you walk in the door, often.
Let me ask you this question. How long would an average market appraisal take? Just pick a number.
Average. I did one yesterday in about 10 minutes and signed it up.
Okay, great, good.
Existing client was just going to happen.
The answer is it depends how long it needs.
But you say an average. Yeah, I understand that. So I used to have a rule that generally speaking, most agents who ask that question say, look, an hour, 2 hours. I think that's long.
Yeah.
Right? But I used to have a 50-minute rule.
Yeah.
If I couldn't sign it up in 50 minutes, I generally close it up.
On 45 minutes.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was my rule. So from that point of view and that was on a cold call.
Yeah.
That was on someone I didn't know. All right? And the reality of that is that I find that the flower, there's a lot of flowery stuff that comes out, and that's why I talk about the expert, because sometimes it's never about listing the house.
No.
It's about how they think you're going to negotiate for them.
Yeah.
Where they go, you're that skillful and that knowledgeable in the marketplace, Mr. Heavyside, Mr. Salan, that here's my house. I very rarely ask for the listing. They want to give it to me.
Yeah.
Did you find that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got, if you're aware they've seen some activity before, they're drawn to you.
Yeah.
It's just about making sure they feel comfortable that you're going to go ahead and it's a natural thing when you close the business out. You still have to ask the question and get that authority out.
I get.
Jason's very good at assuming a close. Very good. Probably one of the best in the company at assuming a close.
Yeah, I think that all comes down to, like for me, if it's 30 to 45 minutes, and if you're getting those warm and fuzzy feelings and the body language and the rapport with the clients,
he just pulls out an authority.
He
doesn't ask the question. he just starts filling it in and what name is this in and they just give the name out. But he doesn't even ask the question. They're giving the name out and it's beautiful at the assumption close. Yeah. He's a master.
If they don't stop you when you've got the authority out, mate.
Obviously that knowledge and that power or that confidence is great. I'll tell you a quick story. When I first started in real estate, at that time there used to be yellow authorities and pink authorities. And the pink authorities were the OLs, the open listings. Right? And the director at the time, great bloke, taught me a lot about real estate, said to me, Michael, there's a whole lot of units being built now behind the Glen Shopping Centre. Go down and list them. So I'd been there a couple of days. Keen as mustard I was. So I go into the back stationery cabinet, right, and I look at the authorities and there's yellow and there's pink. So I'll pick the yellow. Put it in my authority, go out. Anyway, I came back and I bumped into this guy who ended up becoming a business mentor of mine for a while, Sol Honig. Very, very nice man. And I went in and he had a group of 5 units. So that day I came back with them all signed up on a sole agency, right? And I can remember going to Bob, I've got those units down at 47 Montclair Avenue. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, okay. He goes, yep, all right. He goes, are we allowed to put up a board? And I went, yeah, we got them. And he goes, well, what do you mean? I said, I filled the right form out, didn't I? And he goes, what, you got a sole agency? Because all the units were all OLs, they were all open listed there, right? I'm going back in 1987. right? And he goes, bloody well done. But I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
I just looked at it and went, okay, so let's go.
Yeah, that's right. Same for a vendor. I don't know any different.
Right, but that assumptive thing, and let me tell you, I was green as, although I'd had a good job prior, I was 23 then, I was green as, but I just thought that was the way to go about it.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I used to say with my guys. Don't worry that the marketplace is dropping their commission. Don't worry that the marketplace will take a generic or general listing. If you think you're worth that and the vendor feels that, they will give you that.
Yeah.
How many times do you see that where a young agent comes in and he's got this $2 or $3 million cracking listing up against all these other agents?
Yeah.
You sort of go, like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
You know, but it's that sort of, I didn't know any different. Yeah,
that's why the education you put across is so important, because if you don't educate your people right, what happens is that, you know, without getting too political here, they say that one of the worst things for humanity is our education process. So if you believe even in a skerrick of that, then your responsibility as directors is to make sure that you're uplifting and not downtroding the people that you're teaching and education and educating.
Yeah.
Agree?
100%.
Yeah.
And it's really encouraging people's efforts.
Yes.
As leaders as well.
Yeah.
And if you encourage the effort rather than saying, you know, oh, good boy, you know, but in front of other people in a sales meeting environment, you know, hey, you got that listing, and you know, in front of everyone, and in that social proof.
Yeah,
that's
and get them to tell you how they did it.
Yeah, in front of everyone.
Because sometimes they don't know how they did it.
Yeah,
and that's the other thing that I learned is when someone done a good job, and that's why this interview is going fantastic. That from the point of view of educating people to the fact that if you don't know what you do and you've been successful, you might only do it once. But if you know what you're doing that works, then you can enhance it, which is obviously what you two guys do regularly.
Yeah.
Look,
and refining it.
Yeah, our training program, and there's a lot of good companies out there that do a lot of internal training, for sure. But you know, I think I've been to ARIC 15 times or whatever it is. You know, like I would go to 3, 4, 5 conferences a year minimum. I've got a mentor which I'm training with, as you know. We do weekly training, we do monthly training. Like I've got the CDs in the cars, or the tapes as it used to be. You know, the old David Knox tapes. You know, but you can't get enough of that, and empowering the other agents within the office to adopt that sort of methodology to education itself is just so important.
But when they see you do it, naturally they want to do it.
Yeah,
I want to be successful like Jason. Look what he does. Yeah. And they ask you, and they want to be around you, and that's what happens.
I just can't fathom people that don't want to go to conferences and learn. I just go, well,
it's corny, but you lead by example.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And it's no different to the coffee thing that I spoke about before. You know, a lot of directors don't want to go to conferences, don't want to do all that because they think they're above it. And the reality of it is, it's like populate or perish. If you're not growing, you're going to die.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, and I don't mean that your company has to go global, but, you know, talking about working on your profitability, getting better staff, having a better lifestyle, make sure home's right.
Yeah.
All those sorts of things sort of come into the mix, don't they, to an extent?
Yeah.
So, all right, so let's just, from that point of view, then let me ask you this. There'll be people watching this that are, as I said before, there'll be directors watching it, right, that will no doubt get a lot from it, and there'll be young people that want to be where you guys are now in X period of time. From this point of view, how do you keep your job satisfaction level when you've been successful for so long as you both have? How do you keep that how do you keep feeding that to make sure, like if you're earning $100 a week, and you're earning $100 a week every week, you know, and say that it only costs you $10 a week to live. You've got $90 spare a week to live. So you've got plenty of money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What keeps you motivated? And I know, you know, I always say to people, there's a few things that you need in life. You need good communication, you need good family, you need intimacy with friends and partners and things like that, and you need some money.
Yeah.
Right? You need some money to live. But if all those things are ticking the boxes, what else do you want? What else do you do? What else keeps you motivated?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, for me, I suppose it's always about resetting those goals. You know, about what you want to achieve and where you want to be. And
is that raising the bar?
Not necessarily all the time. I think you know, like I'm a little different to Tim. Like I've achieved a lot of the things that I want to have achieved, you know, from a salesperson point of view, and that probably doesn't drive me as much anymore. I know it still drives.
That's what I'm talking about. That part where you're going, yeah, okay,
So for me, I look at different things now about growing. You know, I get a lot of satisfaction in seeing, you know, younger agents or newer agents be successful. I love the challenges of growing the business, whether it be acquiring other businesses or rent rolls or whatever it might be, setting up a finance business. Those things for me on a professional front are very satisfying. I still enjoy the listing and selling and doing the auctions on the Saturday, but also I find real estate for me just provides the opportunity to create a lifestyle that I enjoy for my wife and my family, and importantly I say that I enjoy, you know, and I'm always challenging myself on those sides of things. Like I want to take, you know, 12 weeks off a year and go and travel in Europe or wherever it might be.
That stuff's so important, that downtime. We've spoken about that a bit. But just, I suppose, in summary and in just sort of winding up, and there might be a time, if you guys are happy to do it, we might do another interview in the next few months or whatever, where I'll get into the crux of a few other things. Right? And maybe even at your own office, where I can ask you a few more.
Bit of corporate branding.
Yeah, bit of corporate branding, exactly right. In that downtime part, right, and I just want to sort of, you spoke about 12 weeks a year. I know we speak about that at Dr. Fred. That downtime, for me, as an individual, is so crucial that you need to refill your vial, right? And I'm not just talking about the energy vial, but maybe the spiritual vial, whatever it might be. So there's sometimes, I always say, it's good to do something for somebody that can never ever repay you. Right? So I try and work on that every day if I can, and it makes me feel good. And even when I'm tired and lagged, some of those little things that happen that I might be able to help someone with actually start giving me a lot of energy. I don't know where it comes from. You know, some of my friends call me Captain Energy as a bit of a joke, but from that point of view, that downtime is crucial. So if you take 12 weeks off a year, how long, what do you do, Tim?
Perhaps not 12, but I'd probably be somewhere between 8 and 9.
Yeah, okay, all right, okay. Well, what you're hearing, guys, is you're hearing from two extremely successful directors, a very, very successful real estate group, Fletchers, here in Melbourne. So I want to thank both of you for your time. Thank you very much.
Pleasure, mate.
Thanks very much. And mate, I very much appreciate your valuable time, and list and sell crazy, guys.
Thanks
very much.
Ciao.